Good day. This is a quick presentation on the Krios by me, Wilfred Wright. I am not a historian. Some people think I may be an educator. Selected projects that may be of interest to this presentation. I founded thekrios.com, which is both a website and a Facebook group, and actually a small charity in the United Kingdom. I did it, and I called a few of my friends, Yamide Thomas, Catherine Layton Johnson, and Cordelia Strong to join me because we felt that there was a gap for a neutral place where you could pass on this information. So about the Krios, if you are not a member, you should, and you're on Facebook, you should join us. I am also involved in a center at Waterloo called the Akin Center, which does supplementary education for primary school students. A little bit about me you can find on wilfredw.com. So I looked at three sources over the weekend. One is a book by Akintola Wise called The Krios of Sierra Leone with a K. Then there is Creoledom by Arthur Porter, which was part of his dissertation. And then with a C, Reoledom. And then The Krios of Sierra Leone, Responses to Colonialism, 1870 to 1875 by a man called Leo Spitzer. Well, I'm pronouncing it the German way. These are the three books I kind of read over the weekend to come to this summary. It is by no means complete. It will be good for you to also go and read your own historical sources. Right. The question is, Creole or Creole? Somebody asked me that one. And based on what I've read in the literature, it has been used interchangeably. So, for example, Arthur Porter used Creoledom, whereas Akintola Wise used Creole with a K, Arthur Porter with a C. Akintola Wise's argument was the Creole comes from the Yoruba word Kiyo, which means to walk about and be satisfied. And his counter argument against using Creole was that it was used, or it is used in a lot of contexts that does not necessarily relate to Sierra Leone and therefore can be confusing. That's why he stuck to Creole and Creoledom. Doesn't mean that the others are necessarily wrong, but my preference is Creole and Creoledom, and that's what I'm going to use in this presentation. So, Creoles are of mixed ethnicity. That's what I want to establish right from the beginning. The Creoles concept of the Creoles comes from settlers. We will discuss that later on in the presentation, liberated Africans and others. And in the case of the others, it is those who had cultivated their habits and accepted the Creole way of living. I will explain that in the next slide. But I think this is very important to note. There is nothing like a purebred Creole man. It does not exist. The Creole of living, based again on the research, is Christianity, although there are some Muslim Creoles, which they call Akus. Strong emphasis on education, politics, ideals, aspiration, a very high sense of individualism. And according to the authors, this is what has led to so much conflict within the Creoles, this very high sense of individualism, and then of course their mode of dress and property. They wanted property because the settlers were slaves and people wanted to own their own thing. They were very articulate, so they laid great emphasis on language. So, where do the liberated Africans come from? Several places. A lot of them came from Sierra Leone, from the interior of Sierra Leone. Nigeria, Angola, Senegal, Ghana, many more. Not enough for the species. But again, you can see, if I go back to the slide before us, well, I don't seem to be able to, no worries. You would see that it is a combination of the settlers and the liberated Africans, plus others that make the Creole. So already you could see the liberated Africans, the whole mixture of people. The ethnic mixture in terms of language, this slide does not even show enough. In fact, some researcher found out that there were over 100 African languages he was able to identify distinct in the colony of Sierra Leone. But for the avoidance of doubt, these are some of them: the Yoruba, Igbo, Mende, Temni, Hausa, Ashanti, Nupe, Efik, and Bambara, and a whole lot of others as well. So already you can see the mixture was quite substantial in terms of languages, because they just collected everybody from everywhere that were freed from the ship. I'm now coming to the settlers, the first set of people who came to the colony between 1787 and 1800. 1787, you had the first set of black poor from London, about 60 white men and women as well. They arrived in 1787 because the colony was created. Some English people felt bad about slavery, and these black people were roaming around London rather destitute, and they felt that if they put them in a place where they would be able to look after their own destiny, that will be a good thing. And that's the first batch of people that came, the black poor, 411. A lot of them died, and that settlement struggled. The second batch that came 5 years later were black loyalists from Canada stroke Nova Scotia, about 1100. That's where this man called Thomas Peters was as well. Again, this is just a quick overview. And then a couple of years later, the Maroons from Jamaica came, and they came to help the British more or less suppress a rebellion. So that's about 500. So these are the settlers between 1787 and 1800, about 13 years. I did the liberated Africans first, just so that you see. And these two groups of them make the Krios. So let me wrap it up. Okay, numbers and cents. You're looking at 2,000 settlers, probably less because some of them died. Between 1808 and 1864, 84,000 liberated Africans came. So the probability that any Creole now alive, you're more likely to be a descendant of a liberated African just on the numbers. So accusing a Creole of having Mende or Susu blood is actually laughable because of what I just showed earlier, the ethnic mixture. What are they supposed to be made of? That's really the main point I'm trying to make with this particular presentation. Of course, we have Mende blood, and we have Susu blood, and we have Limba blood, and we have Yoruba blood, because we're mixed. And finally, I was thinking about it this morning. The Creoles are just two groups of Africans freed from slavery, the settlers, and Africans saved from slavery, the liberated Africans. That's what we are. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, join the Krios.com Facebook group and ask them. As I said, I am not a historian. I may have missed some things, but feel free to ask there. I'm one of the administrators. And again, thank you for listening.